In 1928, Walt Disney boarded a train to California after signing a contract that cost him everything. By the time he arrived in Los Angeles, the character behind his success was no longer his. Just a few years earlier, things had started to come together. Disney's studio was still small, still fragile, but it finally had direction. Through a deal with a distributor, he had begun producing a series of animated films, built around a character called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. The films were gaining attention, they were improving with each release, and for the first time, it felt like something was beginning to hold. Not just another project, but a future. But that future came with a condition. Disney had created the character, but he didn't own it. The rights belonged to the distributor. At the time, it was a compromise, one he accepted just to keep the studio going. Without that deal, there was no work and no studio. In 1928, Disney travelled to New York to renegotiate the deal. Oswald had proven successful, the films were popular, and Disney expected that success to give him leverage. Instead, he walked into a negotiation that had already been decided. If he wanted to continue producing the series, he would have to accept a lower pay budget and less control over the work. And then something else became clear. Several of his own animators had already been approached behind his back. If he refused the terms, they would stay. The character would stay. The work would continue, but without him. It wasn't just a negotiation, it was a takeover. At that point, there was no real choice left. Disney didn't own the character, he didn't control the contract, and he could no longer rely on the team he had built around him. Everything he had been working towards, the character, the progress, the direction of his studio, was out of his hands. He refused the deal, and with that decision, he lost it. The journey back to California was quiet. There was no clear plan, no guarantee the studio would survive, and nothing left to build from. What remained was a decision: to walk away or to begin again. Somewhere during that journey, Disney had begun sketching a new idea. Not a rabbit this time, something smaller. A mouse. At first he called him Mortimer, but it was his wife Lillian Disney who suggested a different name, Mickey, and this time it stayed. Within a year, that character, Mickey Mouse, would appear in Steamboat Willie, one of the first animated films to successfully combine sound and image. It didn't just work, it changed everything, and it was the beginning of what would become one of the most influential studios in the world. The film stood out immediately. Audiences noticed it, and for the first time, Disney wasn't just catching up, he was leading. More importantly, this time, the character was his, and it belonged to him. The moment Walt Disney lost everything wasn't the end of his work. It was the moment that forced him to start again, and build what would become one of the most influential studios in the world.